Let's talk a little bit about your book, Go One More. So I've been on a pretty good roll here, Nick, getting to the gym. Vanity's a hell of a motivator. I got to be shirtless on national television come August to do the New York City Navy SEAL swim. So I got to get in shape. And my buddy who I'm training with is always like, go one more, man. Go one more. Like complete failure. You can squeeze one more out. And so when I was thinking about and reading about your book, you take that whole idea, that one little thing, and you talk about how it applies to every single thing that we're doing, every single habit, every single step towards success. One more. That's how you build success.
So it's these small incremental decisions we make that I believe compound over time. And for me, I want to share the story of Go One More because I think it's very meaningful. And the book that I wrote, Go One More, is about the evolution of those three simple words, where I used to believe Go One More was just an action. And now I believe that is part of what Go One More is, but Go One More is much greater than that. It's actually an outcome that we can achieve by making very intentional, life-changing choices. It's not just doing more of everything all the time for any reason. It's doing the right things at the right time for the right reasons that's going to shift the trajectory of your life. But the foundation and founding story of Go One More, I mean, I have it tattooed on my arm. There's thousands of other people who have it tattooed on their arms and bodies as well now. I was training for my first marathon in 2018. And before that, I was in the Army. I ran a lot when I was in the Army. When I got out of the military, I literally said I will never run a day in my life again. And then a year later, I'm signed up for a marathon. And since then, I've done ultra marathons, 100-mile races, Ironmans. But I was training for my first marathon. I had an 18-mile run on the schedule for that day, which was the longest I would have ever run up until that point. I was 10 miles into this run. I quit on that run. I started walking back to the apartment that my wife and I were renting at the time. And as I'm walking back to the house, the apartment, I'm thinking to myself, if I quit on this run, what else will I quit on in my life? Will I quit on my business? Will I quit on my family? Will I quit on my team? And through some of that self-reflection, I walked back to the trail, living in Austin, Texas at the time. So there's this beautiful Lady Bird Lake, Town Lake loop around Austin, Texas. And I went back to the trail. I finished the 18-mile run. I ran one additional mile. I ran 19 miles that day. Came back to the house, wrote one more under the bill of my hat, took a photo of it, posted on social media, and it went nuts. It went wild. All these other people started writing it on the bill of their hat, taking a photo of it, posting it. And that then evolved into what is now Go One More. I realized I struck a nerve in people. And that has become the foundation of my business, but also the mission of my life. And I've applied it to every aspect. So that's why I say it's much more than just an action. It's an outcome that I think we can all achieve if we do more of the right things.
What do you mean you looked into with this book each and every one of those words individually? Go one more. Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, to your point, it's a phrase. It's not just an action. It's a. I don't want to diminish it to the concept of a mantra, but tell me a little more about what you mean by you're looking into it piece by piece.
I mean, Go One More. It's very simple to understand. But I have this chapter in the book that talks about the difference between simple and easy, right? And I used to think that simple and easy were synonyms, and I've come to realize that they're not. I was just reading this section on the way here, actually, in the book, and Albert Einstein has these 5 ascending levels of intelligence, and the highest level of intelligence is simple. So Go One More itself, they are 3 simple individual words that we can all understand. I mean, if you tell someone to go one more, it is very easy to take those words and put them into action. But just because they are simple does not mean it is easy. To show up every single day and to apply that to every part of your life, to keep going one more. I mean, the power in that is absolutely remarkable. And I don't use the word remarkable often because I believe, and I've heard this from Seth Godin before, an incredible entrepreneur, author, and leader, the difference between very good and remarkable is extreme. when you apply Go One More, very simply, and that compounds over time, it produces remarkable results in your life. And I have been one to experience those remarkable results for myself.
What are those results? What have you experienced?
I mean, if I think back to my childhood, I grew up in central Pennsylvania. Dad's side of the family were dairy farmers. Mom's side of the family, a lot of them were in the military. My mom was in education, special education specifically. The ceiling for what I thought I could achieve in my life was so limited based off of just my environment. And then I realized that one of my strengths and powers is just being extremely consistent. And that over time has led me to building the business that I run now. I mean, when I started my business in 2012, I took a $20,000 loan out with a military associated bank, USAA. I told my dad we were going to make $1 million that first year. He said, Nick, if it was that easy, everyone would do it. And year one, we did $20,000 in revenue. Year two, we did $20,000 in revenue. Year three, we did $20,000 in revenue. It took us 5 years to struggle to get to 7 figures. Then just getting to 7 figures was an absolutely brutal awakening of realizing and learning the hardship of cash flow for a product-based business. But now getting that business to, where we're at today, profitable, about 45 full-time employees. I've applied the consistency and lessons of Going More to not only my business, but my physical accomplishments, building a family, leading a team and family, happily married. I have a almost 3-year-old daughter, a 1-year-old son. And it's just, as my life has grown and you could argue become more complicated and responsibilities have increased, applying the simple application of Go One More has, I believe, guided me into success that I believe is success.
How did you realize that one of your superpowers was consistency?
Honestly, I never was at a moment where I said, I'm going to be a very consistent person. I think that was part of what I learned growing up from both sides of my family. I think that was just built into my bloodline and DNA. But it was probably 2018 where one of my employees who still works with us today, great friend, Jordan Utter, he recognized the fact that of all the things I'm working towards, he believes he believed back then my greatest characteristic and skill was just my ability to be extremely consistent. And my running coach, Jeff Cunningham, he has this quote that I absolutely love, and I quoted him in the book. And he says, it's better to be consistently good than occasionally great. And if you look at the most successful people, they are not the ones that are going to throw the Hail Mary pass every single day or knock it out of the park with every business deal they go after. But day in and day out, they are applying this ruthlessly consistent application to every part of their life. Being consistently good as opposed to occasionally great will lead you to where I believe you want to be. It might take much longer. It's not going to be a week, a month, a year from now. But I mean, if I look at my business, I am now 13 years into building my brand, and there was never or not very oftenly the occasionally great, but it's 13 years of being very consistently good.
Okay. I got a lot of things I want to follow up on. Did you play sports growing up?
I did, but I was never a stud athlete. I played sports. I played baseball. I played ice hockey, but I was never the stud.
But
yeah.
Did you see these characteristics in yourself as a young athlete? Like you were consistent, you were very good or good, not occasionally great, but it also paid off. I'm curious if these habits began to build at all through that, or even if they didn't build through that, did they illustrate themselves at all in that young formative experience in life?
I wouldn't say with sports or when I was younger, you wouldn't be able to look at me and say, Nick was extremely consistent in anything or X, Y, and Z. But when I was younger, I had a lot of passions that were driven by curiosity. I'd
Mm-hmm.
say I was entrepreneurial since I was younger. And then I went to college. I went to college on an Army ROTC scholarship. I was studying nutrition at the Indiana University of Pennsylvania. And I believe that's where the consistency really started to build. It was my exposure to a military environment. It was my true passion and interest in training, in exercise, and in performance. And then when I started my business when I was in college, that's where I was so passionate about what I was doing that consistency wasn't something I had to wake up and choose to do. It was just something that I did.
Yeah, I'm wondering if that consistency had to be attached to something that you are passionate about, and once you cared about it, it was easier to establish that consistency. It's this thing where, and I struggle with it myself. So like, people say, should you choose your passions in life? Should you choose what you're good at, which are not often the same thing? What you're passionate about and what you're good at are not the same things. And then the path to success, right? Is life about hitting home runs, or is it about racking up singles? And I've gone back and forth on that because I'll be honest with you, Nick, I'm motivated by the home run. Like I wake up motivated. As I've gotten older, I've come to appreciate, compound interest and concepts like being, Tony Gwynn, which was hitting singles and singles and singles until you're in the Hall of Fame, consistently, to your point. Learning to value the small victories. But I just can't figure out, even with myself yet, if I need the concept of the home run to continue to grind out the singles. I need to see that there is a big moment, a payoff, or is it you just wake up one day and you're like, the singles added up, man. The singles added up to something, as you pointed out, remarkable.
Well, I think you put yourself in a position to hit the home runs when, if we're putting this into baseball context right now, the athlete who shows up every day and doesn't miss batting practice and is showing up on time, putting in the reps, taking care of their training, the recovery, they might be very consistently hitting singles, but when they're put in the position with the perfect pitch in the right scenario, they are primed to hit that home run. As opposed to the person who strikes out 9 out of 10 times, hits the one home run occasionally. I'd rather someone who's getting successful singles hits a home run as opposed to the person who's striking out and getting home runs.
Yeah. The other part of this is that I think that we as people are conditioned to be able to accept punishment. We're able to accept pain. And we're even able to at times be patient if we can see progression. That was a lot of P's. That was a really interesting alliteration I just strung together. But the point is, if you see progress, you can continue going, right? And what I like about the story you told us about your business is that the first 5 years, I think you rattled off at least 3 to 5 years, it was 20,000, 20,000, 20,000. After telling your dad it would be $1 million in the first year. Now, if you were getting 20,000, then 70,000, then 150, you could continue to tell yourself, I'm on the right path, I'm progressing, I can keep struggling, I can keep fighting. There's got to be, during that, let's call it stagnant period, right, of 2020, 2020, when it's like, I don't know, man. Should I cut bait and try something else, right? Is the consistency leading towards remarkable?
And there's a few things there. One, it's how are you measuring success along the way? Like subjectively and objectively, if revenue at that time was the only thing I was using to measure success, I would have been losing the entire time. But at that same time, I was measuring success in other ways. What was I doing in the background of building the brand and setting the business up for the future to ensure that when we were ready for growth, we could go and achieve it. One of my favorite books is it's by Tim Grover. It's called Winning. Tim Grover was the trainer for Kobe and Michael Jordan. He talks about building confidence over time. And he says to build confidence, you have to go after this first win. So that your first win in life is going to be challenging. And it doesn't matter what that first win is. Maybe that first win is graduating high school or graduating college or your first big promotion or you sell your first business. It's all relative. to get that first win, it requires a lot of effort. And after you get that first win, it feels really good. You build some confidence. And then after that, you probably set a larger goal. And that larger goal requires more work, more effort. But when you finally achieve it, which will probably come from with some failures, accompanied by failures, you build more and more confidence. So if I look at my life, I'm sure you can do the same and others as well. We've built all of this confidence over decades of time because we've set goals. We've made a plan. We went to accomplish them. Might have missed, eventually got it, built confidence. Next goal, went after it, built confidence. And you do this over years and years and years. The amount of confidence you can build over decades is absolutely amazing.
Right. If you're able to accomplish these habits and able to accomplish this consistency, which is a self-described superpower, there is something else out there, and it's like, it's easy. The easy analogy is poker. Is, do you chase bad hands, right? And do you continue to put good money on top of bad money? That's another thing people talk about when it comes to investments, right? I think I have a similar mindset to you, not the same, similar in some ways, of I don't like quitting. And I am, as it turns out, capable of grinding. But I have at times wondered, hey, maybe you should reevaluate everything. You know what I mean? Maybe you should step back. Are you putting good money on top of bad? Do you think that has been something you have to balance? How do you balance that drive? You even write in here, identity, right? Grit is an identity. I get that. It is. But I think there are times, and I don't have a good example. Everyone has to ask it of their own personal life, where it's like, you have turned not quitting, the proverbial you, not you, Nick, but you have turned quitting into a religious proposition. And you have to really ask yourself if you can continue to chase something that your whole grit is pushing you towards. There's another angle to this. And also, make sure you want what it produces. I've always asked myself that as well. Because I'm that way, make sure you want the success this produces, because it does produce a certain kind of success. Do you want that payoff? I just wonder sometimes about the self-evaluation process while you're in this grind.
I mean, I think you can't have this conversation without asking those questions. Because if you're working towards something that you actually don't want, or you're not interested in anymore, and you're doing it because you believe you have to be committed to it because you said you were going to do it, it's okay to stop doing that. There's this thing I talk about in the book, and I quote Lewis Howes. It's called identity foreclosure. The example is, say when you were younger and you decided you wanted to be a doctor, and that's what you told everyone you were going to go to do. And then you went through all the schooling, and you spent 10 to 12 years in the schooling, and you finally become a doctor, and you realize when it's time to become a doctor, I actually don't want to do this anymore. But you feel obligated to because you told everyone you were going to and you committed to it. I think it would be foolish to spend the next 20 to 30 years of your life being a doctor if you don't want to be a doctor. In that moment, decide to quit and go do something else. There's been times where I've stopped doing what I was working towards, and I thought I had to have this grand explanation of why, and the reality was I just don't feel like it anymore. I'm not passionate or interested in it. And if you're doing something you're not passionate or interested in, it's okay in certain situations and circumstances to pivot and go towards something else. I'm not saying every single time you decide I don't want to do this anymore, you just quit and stop. There is a time and place to continue pushing through the obstacles and resistance. But in certain situations, there has to be a level of awareness of, I'm not going to pursue this anymore because it's not worth my time, money, or effort.
And that's why you bring up early in the book, you talked about here, intentionality.
Yeah.
Like, give some thought to what it is you're about to put grit into. Also, by the way, just as we're kind of struggling through this, or I am, there is by the way, does anyone ever who's your doppelganger? I'm just sitting here looking at you, talking to you, and I got it right there. I mean, it's dead ringer. And so you're going to say it 100%. Who do people tell you look like?
No one. I never get that question.
Come on, Nick.
Never. Who do you think? Who do you think I look like?
2 days. Can you see it?
I don't see it
yet. Do you
yet.
see it?
I don't see it yet.
Well,
is it an athlete?
Is it an athlete? No, it's an actor, and it's in he's in person with you. He's not in person with me, and he's wearing this hat. So maybe it's different without the hat. Dude looks like Ryan Gosling. I'm not trying to
I see it.
make him. You do see it?
Same face shape. You're right. Yeah.
Wow, I appreciate
Yes.
that. That's a compliment.
Yeah, I know.
Thank
It's
you.
such a huge compliment that I don't want to say it out loud. It makes me extremely suspect. But you got it, man. You look like
Uncomfortable.
I'm gonna rip this clip and use
dude
it.
looks like dude looks like Gosling. I don't know if you look that way without the hat. Never take it off. See what happens for you. You said you're married, so
The
I
hat's,
don't know
the
what
hat's
that's gonna
always
do
on.
for you.
It's always on.
Okay, intentionality. Paralysis by analysis. That's another thing. Like, oh, he's stuck in this state of what it is I am gonna do. I'm gonna devote myself. I'm gonna grind. I'm gonna have this grit. But I gotta figure it out first because I'm gonna pour all this into it. So intentional. I find, and I'm guilty. This is as much therapy as it is talking about people out there. I'm sure a lot of people can identify. You've been stuck on analysis.
So we had this. First off, I think that action will be the cure of all things procrastination. But we had this speaker come in and talk to our team, our athletes, a few months ago, nearly a year ago. His name's Donald Miller, author, entrepreneur, leader. And he talked about these three components to maintaining momentum and acting on a decision. And the first is you have to have curiosity. So the first step is there's something that you are curious about. Let's put it in context of a marathon. I'm curious and interested to know if I can run 26.2 miles. And then there is the second stage is education. You go out, you educate yourself of here's the shoes I need, here's a training plan I need, here's how I use nutrition to fuel my training. I have 16 weeks until this race. Here's from point A to point B what I need to do to run 26.2 miles. And then that third component is commitment. That is the action of saying, I'm going to do this. Here's the plan. Now I'm going to go execute. If you apply those three ingredients to everything that you do or want to do, it is a step-by-step process of I'm curious, I'm interested. Now I need to go learn, and now I need to commit. That commitment in itself will eliminate the fear of any procrastination, and you will make progress. You will maintain momentum because you've just followed those three steps.
Yeah, and I've found that action produces clarity. And, you can be stuck on analysis for a long time. And then you start doing. Just do. And then you refine, you pivot, you have revelations about what it is you want to do. Much easier through the process of action than through sitting there with analysis. You're going to find out in mile 5 a lot more about whether you want to run a marathon than you will by never starting.
Well, I think most people, that's the best part about the marathon is if you run your first marathon, mile 16, 17, 18 is a lot of regret of signing up for that marathon, but you learn from that race.
Yeah.
It's like that's part of the process. And I believe that most people, and this has never been one of my problems, so I'm grateful for this, but a lot of people want to perfect something before moving on to the next. And sometimes it's better to just get the job done and then move on and keep making progress. So progress over perfection.
Well, we talked a lot about Nick and his career, but it's all also part of this, like he said, not this action, but this guiding force in life. Go one more, which he's written about. Find the clarity to make intentional life-changing choices in Go One More by Nick Bare. Also, check him out on YouTube. I've really enjoyed the conversation, Nick. Thank you, man.
Appreciate it. Thank you.